this isn't a movement. This is our lives, and we have to live it every single day.
It's going to be tough. It's a tough fight, but we just got to stick with it.
Walking in my neighborhood, can't count the amount of times police have just conveniently driven past me.
When you get stopped by a police officer, stick your hand out the window. I'm like, stick your hand out the window? What's going on? He said, these cops will shoot you.
And I said, why'd you pull me over? And it was a white guy, and he says, because I ran your license plate and nothing came back.
I don't think racism is in your DNA. Like, you weren't born to be racist.
My objective through life has always been, I have to prove the narrative wrong.
And I'm really kind of sad and kind of embarrassed and feel awful that there is so much racism.
Welcome, I'm Art Holliday, alongside Five on Your Side's Rennie Knott and Ahmad Hicks. This is Race. Listen, learn, live. If you're one of the people who melts down at the mention of Black Lives Matter or systemic racism, or athletes using their platforms for overdue change, this may not be the program for you. But if you're someone who's genuinely willing to listen, someone who's interested in being part of the solution, by all means stay tuned. We're glad you're with us.
So how do you start a conversation about race in America without people getting angry or defensive? Why does race seem to be such a dangerous topic these days? Is it because you might say the wrong thing or express an opinion that other people don't necessarily share? Seriously, race seems to be a taboo discussion. But don't things need to change? How are we as a nation going to understand our differences if we don't talk without the fear of not being heard?
And for the next 60 minutes, you'll hear from a number of accomplished individuals, some who may be familiar to you, well-known people who have had assumptions made about them based on their skin color, and other people who have succeeded in spite of the racial roadblocks placed in front of them. Our panel members have gathered to share their truths to illuminate societal problems, and our goal? Context and solutions to problems America has been facing for decades.
Let's begin by meeting our panel. First up, Jeremy Macklin. Jeremy grew up in Meacham Park and attended Kirkwood High School. He was a wide receiver at Mizzou, where he was a two-time consensus All-American. The Philadelphia Eagles drafted Jeremy in the first round in 2009. He also played for the Chiefs and Ravens before retiring in 2019. His nonprofit, J. Mac Gives Back, helps youth in the St. Louis area. Sean Witherspoon grew up in Jasper, Texas. He was a linebacker at the University of Missouri and was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in 2010 as the 19th overall pick. He also played for the Arizona Cardinals. Brad Smith grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. Smith was a four-year starter at quarterback for the Mizzou Tigers. Brad was the MVP in the 2006 Hula Bowl and excelled in the classroom, earning a spot on the Big 12 All-Academic team. He was drafted by the New York Jets in 2006. Ryan Howard has an impressive baseball resume. World Series champion, National League Rookie of the Year, three-time All-Star, National League MVP. Ryan grew up in Florissant and went to Lafayette High School. A first baseman, Ryan played college ball at Missouri State. He was drafted by the Phillies in 2001 and called up to the majors 3 years later, spending his entire career with Philadelphia. Ryan holds numerous Phillies records, retiring in 2016. Will Franklin grew up in Beaumont, Texas, and finished high school at Vashon. He was a wide receiver at Mizzou. He's played for the KC Chiefs, Detroit Lions, and Oakland Raiders. Will served as the coordinator of player development at Mizzou, returning to Vashon in 2018 as head football coach and assistant athletic director. Mike Jones grew up in Kansas City. Another Mizzou grad, he originally played running back but switched to linebacker. He signed with the Oakland Raiders as a rookie free agent and then started with the St. Louis Rams in 1997. He's known for ensuring the Rams' victory in Super Bowl 34 by tackling the Titans' Kevin Dyson at the 1-yard line. He is head football coach at SLU High. Justin Britt attended high school in Lebanon, Missouri, where he lettered in football, wrestling, and track. He started for Mizzou at both left and right tackles. Justin was drafted by the Seahawks in 2013 and is currently a free agent in the NFL. Rounding out our panel, former Mizzou head coach Gary Pinkel. This program at Mizzou produced 9 first-round NFL draft picks, 7 bowl victories, and 5 conference divisional championships. Pinkel is the founder of the GP Made Foundation, helping children who face health, physical, and economic challenges.
Everyone's take on racism is just a little different. So we begin our conversation getting to know our panel of athletes just a little better, asking the question, have they ever been treated differently because of the color of their skin?
I grew up in a town, small town in Texas called Jasper, Texas. And there's a lot of history of, racism. It's a place where, it's a small town and everybody really, just kind of gathers around sports. People love sports. And, when I was playing ball with my buddies, it was something, where we just focused on ball. But after ball, I noticed that none of my white buddies came to my house to eat dinner. I noticed that at the football field, it was always a little different than it was at the baseball field. And it kind of discouraged my buddies to go out to play baseball. So I didn't have a lot of black buddies that I played baseball with. So we kind of hung tight together. When I got a chance to get to Missouri, it was like a safe haven. I didn't understand what was, the systematic oppression in Missouri. I thought it was just going on, in my area. And when I got to school, Coach Pinkel and the rest of the athletic staff in the athletic department they had nurtured an environment where we felt, safe, and nothing kind of felt different to me. I just saw my teammates as my teammates, and, we were all trying to achieve a common goal. But when you step outside of that bubble in Columbia, Missouri, that's where, it was these things were put in my face a little bit more that reminded me of Jasper, Texas.
I grew up born and raised in St. Louis. I was born in North County, Florissant. We moved out to Wildwood, where my parents still reside now, but went to Lafayette High School. And obviously from a baseball standpoint, you understand that your white counterparts, that's where the more competitive baseball is going to be. I grew up, I played baseball on black teams. I played on a white team, but it was a completely different animal playing on that white team, because you look around and you're, like I said, you're one of one or maybe one of 2 black kids on that team. And, you do kind of feel some type of way in terms of like, okay, well, my teammates are my teammates and I'm going to enjoy myself and have a good time. But in terms of other things, they can't really relate to you. So you find yourself in situations where you're kind of looking to relate more to them as opposed to somebody of your own color.
For me, so for those who don't know my story, when I was about 13, 14 years old, I had a white family take me in. And I met this family when I was 9 years old. So I was able to spend some time with them and understand, something I had never seen before. You know what I mean? Something as little as eating dinner together as a family, right? We didn't do that at my house. We didn't sit around the table and eat dinner. So I was able to kind of see different things. And I'll never forget this, man. We're going trick-or-treating in the neighborhood. And we get up to this house and the family asks, okay, who lives in this neighborhood? And, Tyler and Mitchell, who are my white brothers, they raised their hands, and I didn't live in the neighborhood at the time, so I didn't raise my hand, and, they gave them these big king size Snicker bars, and I had, a Tootsie Roll. And like, at the time, it didn't hit me what that was, you know what I mean? And that's what, that's the type of stuff that we had that I faced kind of growing up, I had a teammate call me the N-word before. So it's always been, relevant in my life because I've experienced it. So I've dealt with it all, but the one thing that I've never, let that affect is how I view people, because I felt like if I let those instances or those couple of examples shape my mindset for how I view everybody who looks like that or everybody who does what they do, I would never reach my maximum potential as a person. I would never have gotten to where I am now.
I can remember as a kid, in Kansas City that, there were certain areas that they just told you don't go there because it's going to be a problem for a black man. And I can remember it was strictly north of the river, going towards the airport. There was areas that you didn't go to, and I'm quite sure everyone on there has experienced something like that as a black man, where your family has told you hey guys, it may not be smart for you to go over there because it's going to be a problem. And I just can remember as a kid, I played multiple sports, and as athletes, you're able to go, I shouldn't say able, you tend to go places that most of your guys you hang out with don't go. You'll play in areas that a lot of your friends like, hey man, why are you going over there? And like, I don't play baseball over there, I play football, basketball. So you're used to certain environments that a lot of your friends that aren't doing that aren't used to that. So as you get older, when you're playing in high school and then when you go to college, you're playing baseball, football, wherever, all over the country, you go over different areas that a lot of people don't experience. So a lot of things has to do with you being in an area and people not used to going outside their comfort zone in those areas.
Growing up in inner city St. Louis, you don't really interact with a lot of whites. It's predominantly black, 95% black. So the first conversation when I committed my junior year, the first conversation a teacher of mine at Vashon said to me was, Columbia is a racist town. And I had never heard it. I had visited Columbia a few times, played some basketball games and showed me games, all these different things. So I didn't really understand. And a year later, I get on campus and we summer welcome, you're going through all these different things, and we get to the sorority houses. And guys on the team that had been there a couple weeks before me that were freshmen like me were like, man, stay away from over here. Campus police, they really protective over the sorority house. So, you take what those before you have said and you stay as clear as possible. So that never was something that I encountered while on campus at Mizzou. I just listened to those before me. Hey, you stay here, you stay away from there, you can go here. Even when you out, you just respect what those who have had experience in these things tell you.
First, I'm just really humbled to hear everybody's stories. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, and that's if you look up hood in a dictionary, Youngstown's picture is next to it. So for me, what framed at the time my experience as a kid was fear of being hurt by people like me. Just the violence and the depravity that I saw on a daily basis was what scared me. So everything my mom and the church and sports did was to take me away from that. I didn't have the look that a lot of my friends had, that they would be treated a different way. I was the safe one. So I get to college and it really started hitting me, being a quarterback and a guy people see a lot. And it kind of started to hurt me after the fact that, Brad's the safe one. Like he's not like the rest of them. And that's what, probably my sophomore year, I started to feel that weight of seeing my other teammates who maybe weren't in the spotlight as much, weren't having the ball in their hands as much, and they didn't look the way that makes white people or the majority culture comfortable. So they were treated in a different way than I was. And that would hurt me. That really dug me deep. So now, being out of the game of football, walking in my neighborhood, I can't count the amount of times police have just conveniently driven past me in this neighborhood where they never are when I'm out for a walk. When I go in for business deals or try to talk to people about opportunities, I'm just another guy, somebody who's not intelligent until they found out what I did for a living or my experience or whatever success I had playing football. So, Black exceptionalism is a real thing. They say, well, all you guys are on this call, you got a lot of money, you had a lot of success, what are you complaining about? But you can't take this small pot of people and clump the experience of the entire community into one pot. So I think the biggest thing I've seen since leaving the game of football is now you're regular, and now you feel the brunt and the weight that you might have been oblivious to before.
There's levels of racism that I think a lot of people do not understand. And one of those things is the little subtle things that are said to you, the looks that you receive from time to time. From the guys on this call, give us all a better understanding of what it's like to be the black person in the room, the guy who's in the expensive store, the guy that's trying to buy the nice car, the guy that's just trying to live his life, but at the same time feels the looks, hears the little messages like, oh, he speaks so well and stuff like that. Oh, what a nice dresser. Oh, you cover him over there? I mean, I still get that to this day. I'm a 56-year-old man who's on television 5 days a week, yet people will still look at you differently. And I try to think, oh, it's because I'm on TV. And a lot of the time it isn't. So just speak to that idea that there's more racism out there than just the blatant, hey, you N-word. There's a lot of little things that take place as well, right?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one.
Okay, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, you get so many kind of little backhanded compliments. Oh, he's so articulate. He speaks so well. And it's just, how am I supposed to speak? You know, am I supposed to sound a certain way? Because I think like either Brad or like Jeremy said, when you talk a certain way, all of a sudden you're not black. You know, you're not black enough because you don't talk like, you know, somebody who grew up in a different area. So it's one of those things to where it doesn't make sense. Like, look, we've gone to school, we've gotten educations, we know how to speak, we know how to go about walking around and going to the store. The thing I love to do is I'll go walk in a Gucci store or a Louis store and look as bummy as I possibly can. I will go in some sweat shorts, flip flops. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And you walk in and you just get these looks because you know in the back of your mind, I can go in here and buy out this whole store if I wanted to. But when you walk in, it's about the looks that you get because it's automatically assumed that, oh, well, because he's got on these sweatpants and he's got these flip flops, like,
you don't supposed to be here.
I can remember walking into class, you know, at Missouri, my first class, and when you walk in the classroom, everyone looks like, okay, what are you doing here? I mean, it's sad, but it was a fact. You walked in a classroom and you may be one of two or one, especially a smaller classroom, where you may be the only black guy in the classroom. And so, of course, everyone looks at you. And then like Ryan said, oh, he must be an athlete. No, it couldn't be that he's going to school here because, first of all, you deserve to go there anyway. But to go a step further, you know, they expect you to not be there. I'm just going to be candid about it. You know, not expecting to see a guy, because I started off in engineering. So I'm going to calculus and chemistry and I'm walking in the classroom and you can tell when someone looks at you and is like, are you supposed to really be here? Are you in the wrong classroom? And, you know, you just, you know, you got to get beyond that because, you know, you're doing what you want to do and what you're supposed to do. But I mean, it sits in I hate to say it, from day one when you walk in the classroom. And then again, when you get opportunity to do well for yourself and you walk in somewhere where people aren't used to seeing you, you know, everyone's looking at you. And unfortunately, all of us have been part of when people walking around when you're looking at something and you have someone that I call them an admirer of you, even though they're not admiring what you're doing, they're making sure that you're not doing something, you know, and they're walking around the store with you, seeing if you're going to steal something. And that, I mean, it's sad, but that's just a fact.
Frank, after you hear all these stories, being a white broadcaster in St. Louis, why did you feel that it was important to share black stories, especially after George Floyd was killed? And how did you look at life differently as a white man who's been covering black athletes for 30 plus years?
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel any racism growing up at all. I grew up in a white section of town. I didn't have to deal with it at all. But when we were talking to some of these, you know, historical sports figures and very prominent African Americans in the St. Louis area, it was jaw-dropping. I mean, a guy like Ozzie Smith pulled over and said to the police officer, "What did I do wrong?" And the response was, "Nothing yet." And it wasn't just Ozzie. It was Brian Jordan. It was the CEO of Worldwide Technology, Dave Stewart. I tell you, what it did for me was it made me realize, you know, of the struggles that these athletes and these sports figures have had to grow up in. And I had no idea. I thought that as a superstar athlete or a big time sports figure that everything was easy for you. But now I know the struggles, and it really has made me look at things differently. There's no doubt about that.
If I could, I'd like to go back to something that Mike Jones said just a moment ago. Most of you, probably all of you, displayed great athletic ability at an early age. And I'm wondering, were there assumptions made by teachers about you academically? And were they low expectations because of the way you look?
That I've heard stories about guys being told that from teachers, but I've never had to experience that. I'm like Will, man. I've always wanted to beat the narrative, right? You know, I was honor roll in high school. I made the dean's list when I was in college. Like that was always because even though I never had it said to me directly, I always knew kind of, okay, they might think this about me, so let me try to prove them wrong. And that's always been my mentality, even in sports. I have a proven wrong mentality. And I think I think you can ask everybody on this screen right now that has that proven somebody wrong, fueled them to do things and achieve certain things.
Man, that's a deep question. I mean, this is gonna sting a little bit. I mean, because being a kid, I had some emotional traumatization, coming from, my parents had split up and we moved across the country and we're living in Youngstown, Ohio. So that was traumatic for me. And then to be in an environment which was so violent that the fear, the constant stress, it caused me to, not be able to cope with a lot of things that were going on, which a lot of young people nowadays are, in our experiences growing up, like a lot of us, they're going through that right now. And it was so hard in school to try to focus on, adding and subtracting and reading and writing. Like I couldn't even focus. So I had to go on these special ed classes, like in kindergarten, first and second grade. I was a smart kid. I asked a lot of questions. I thought I understood, and I couldn't cope. So I'm labeled as the special ed kid, like not smart enough. Until somebody came and a teacher that saw the good in me and then was able to bring it out of me, African-American teacher. Everybody else wanted to label me as the, that special ed kid. And if I would have continued, I'd have been in that system, and, that system leads to prison. So I never had a teacher necessarily tell me, we don't think you're smart enough, but just by the actions. So I think a lot of times it could, it could be covert that, hey man, let's keep him at this level. And sometimes it's really overt depending on who it is. So it's, I have experienced it, but, I'm thankful that I didn't hear a teacher tell me, like Jeremy was saying, that, you're not going to ever amount to anything. I'm grateful for that.
It doesn't resonate with them because it doesn't affect them. They haven't gotten randomly pulled over. I've had my situations in Philly. We're at the stoplight. Cop pulls up next to me. I'm going left. He's going right. Light turns green. Boom. I turn left. Cop sits at the light for a second. Then he turns left and comes and follows me. We go through this little barricade or whatever, pulls me over. I asked him, I said, well, officer, what did I do? Was I speeding? Did I not signal or anything? I said, why'd you pull me over? And it was a white guy, and he says, because I ran your license plate and nothing came back. And I was like, wait, isn't that supposed to be a good thing? Like, what did I do?
Well, I think all of us have, in one way or another, have said the goal is to move the conversation forward. Definitely we need to look back to see where we've been, but this is about our children. It's about moving the conversation forward. So to the people who will see this, I often say there are three groups. There's the people that already get it, where you're preaching to the choir. And then there's the people who wish all of us would shut up. And then there's a group of people in the middle that understand what they don't know, but they are willing to listen and they are willing to learn. So what's our message to them? to close this out?
I mean, right is right, wrong is wrong, and there's no way around that, you know. And when we're talking about the respect of human beings' lives, you know, we have to hold that to a high standard. We can't find these little holes in, you know, someone's argument or some outlier and try to say, well, it didn't happen like, you know. I mean, right is right, wrong is wrong. Pick a side. The cost of living is going to be eternity wherever you end up.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get the word out. I don't know how to keep the change. In 15 years right now, we have this meeting again. It's everybody going to be saying the exact same things that they did. And then your kids are thrown right in with it like everybody else. So we got to come up with something. And we got to come up, white people, black people, we got to come up with how you can actually change.
My thing is be willing to just have the uncomfortable conversation. That goes for both communities right now, man. No one really wants to have the conversation. So as long as we're willing to put ourselves in vulnerable spaces to understand one another, we will continue going the right direction. But we have to be willing to be in an uncomfortable situation and talk about the things that will affect us, like Coach Pinkel say, 15 years from now. I don't want to be here 15 years from now. I want to be in a place where I can see my kids interact with whoever they want to interact with, whoever they want to marry. That's where I want to be in 15 years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the only way to grow. You have to have those conversations. You have to have people that are willing to have those conversations. But I think it's the only way for us to grow and to honestly try to move forward as one race, as one, as humanity, you know, as to what, you know, this country is supposed to stand for.
I played with Emmanuel Acho, right? And he started this series on Instagram called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And the one thing he always says is, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And I think that's what everybody needs to be honest with themselves about. Black or white, male, female, it doesn't matter. Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And I hope everybody wants to be part of that solution.
I concur with what everybody said. I think to add another layer to that is we got to examine our each individual hearts, you know, in each of these groups to look deeply and retrospectively look at ourselves in the mirror and say, who are we as a person? What are my things that I'm fearful of that cause me to look at somebody in a way that would treat them badly? And that goes for, you know, all you know, hues of melanin in our skin. We have to look at our hearts. You know, we could magically get rid of racism, and if we don't check our hearts, we'll find another idol to put up and treat each other wrong in a different way.
As we say goodbye, I want to thank our panel once again for their courage to speak openly about race in America and for listening to each other. It is not always an easy discussion to have. I ask each of them to continue the push by talking with and educating others moving forward, because it's going to take a collective effort to bring about racial harmony.
We'll have to come together as one, all races. We have to hold our friends, family members, and colleagues accountable, because as we've heard over and over, racism didn't just start. It's just now being recorded. So how can we all come together as one to finally end it?
What will our grandchildren and great-grandchildren say when they study what happened after 2020? Will they be proud about the way their country changed the course of race relations? Or will they wonder why the same problems still exist? It's up to all of us to move the conversation forward towards solutions. You get to choose what side of history you'll be on. Thank you for joining us.
To love, have compassion, and just be genuine good people.
A big part of the solution is love.
White people, black people, we got to come up with how you can actually change.
I don't want to be looking back. It's like, hey, we still here.
Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution?